Hi everyone, D'Anthony Towntano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of the new Florence and the Machine album, Everybody Scream! Powerhouse singer and songwriter Florence Welch. This is her sixth album with The Machine. Together, they make one of the biggest and most consistent art pop and indie rock acts out there. Have been around for almost 20 years at this point, in fact. And this record here follows 2022's Dance Fever, personally one of my favorites in the Florence and the Machine catalog so far, mostly due to its groovy and lush instrumentation, hookier songwriting. In a lot of ways, this record really tried to embody its title. Still, I did find some elements of this LP to be a little one-dimensional though, as Florence does tend to sing in this very theatrical and pronounced way, no matter the track. So while there is a predictability factor there, I did go into this new album excited to hear what Florence would do next, because some of the singles were quite dynamic and loose, and it really felt like she was letting go cathartically with the band on these performances. But going deeper into the album, it would seem that she's not just doing that on this record musically, but lyrically too. And in some ways, I would call this record Florence and the Machine's very own The Life of a Showgirl, as many of the songs in this track list come across like meditations on her artistry and the music industry, which I think at this point there is certainly cause for when you look at the amount of mainstream appeal and influence that Florence has maintained for over a decade now, with her work now being something I hear echoed in younger cutting-edge bands like The Last Dinner Party, for example. So yeah, in a way, why not a victory lap? Why not some self-analysis? And I do think we get that to an extent on the album's massive opening title track, which has these ghoulish, witchy background vocals. And then you have Florence vocally sounding as powerful as ever, as she essentially describes what she becomes or embodies when she's performing. But following this, we quickly go from celebration to diatribe on one of the greats, where you get these slow, driving guitars and drums, which I'm not surprised to hear that Mark Bowen of Idol's fame is in the mix on this track. This is kind of like a scuzzy, slow, sad rock vibe that Idol's has been known for lately, and it fits very well with Florence's vocals as she describes the difficult and often unreasonable balancing act that artists are expected to pull off in order to succeed in the industry and maybe get the accolades they feel they deserve. And a good part of this feels in relation to a recent near-death experience she's spoken about publicly with an ectopic pregnancy, something Florence sees herself having fought through in order to get back to performing and creating. A powerful sentiment, and undoubtedly something that has caused her to feel some type of way about not getting the kinds of greatest all-time accolades that she feels she may have been owed in her lifetime. However, it feels pretty weird that her bitterness around this issue is aimed less at close-minded audiences, and she instead levels words like must be nice to be a man and make boring music just because you can at her fellow artists. But I don't know, I don't think either gender really fully owns making boring music. With the next track, Witch Dance, would you believe me if I said that the rockin' riffs and kind of witchy, ghoulish background vocals make a return and sound fantastic? Because they most certainly do. And I find the production backing Sympathy magic as well as the songwriting to be really compelling too. You have lots of scattered orchestral bits as well as lots of woody timbres coming off of the percussion, like we're getting a lot of stomping or something on a big stage. Meanwhile, on top of all of this, Florence gives a borderline unhinged vocal performance that really fits the lyrics of the track, which I like a lot because there is that virtuosity there and that power and that volume and that presence that we've come to expect from her singing typically. But she sounds so desperate and out of her mind as she goes on to sort of describe how she's not really sort of wanting to play it safe anymore, because falling within the borders of people's expectations didn't save her from harm or criticism in the past anyway. After this, though, things do dip down a little bit, in my opinion, on Perfume and Milk, which is one of a few patient slow burners on the record that take on more of a linear progression. And while it does bring some enchanting vibes for sure, it kind of heads nowhere fast. The Old Religion follows this similar progression progressively intensifying formula, but the payoff is much better. And Drink Deep shares a lot of overlap in this respect too, but feels a lot more like a ritual of sorts, not just due to the instrumentation and the layers of freaky background vocals, but lyrically Florence describes the process of performing and creating as if it is something that is kind of siphoning off her life force, or she kind of gives away a piece of herself every time she does it. Between her vocal performance, the descriptions, and again, just the soundtrack of it all in the background, it does sound genuinely like a nightmare. Rewinding to the middle of the record, though, we also have the song Buckle, which is an acoustic cut, one of the more low-key moments on the entire album, and honestly, in a lot of ways, exactly what I have been looking for on a lot of Florence albums for a while. Just like an effective low-key moment where she explores the more tender sides of her voice. And yeah, that is what this track is. But with that being said, for the general themes of this album, this song here plays some very interesting lyrical angles. Because despite the incredible talent and influence Florence feels in the realm of music, she describes herself as being pretty powerless in the face of just a little flattery. And she is so easily wooed on this song, she likens herself to an ornament hanging off of this guy's jeans or something, like a Labubu. And, you know, I think adding this track essentially kind of highlights a bit of a dynamic here, that this woman can feel, again, powerful and influential and essential in some contexts, but also very weak-willed in others. Case in point, the following track, KRAKEN, goes on to further display that power dynamic. But again, going deeper into the album, Florence continues to subject herself to these very odd relationship dynamics on Music by Men, handily my least favorite song on the album, and for several different reasons. One, I'm just not really into the music itself on the track, as the vocal melodies and chords and overall production feel like that of, I don't know, a Jewel song, but 3 times more drab and uninteresting. Not that I think Jewel's music is uninteresting, I just think this is a much paler version of that. And then there's the relationship description itself in the song, where Florence talks about each of them going to therapy, and on the way they're not talking or engaging in any way. They're kind of listening to their own respective musical demos, or just, you know, kind of putting the headphones on to tune one another out. Generally, she views this person she's with as being super egotistical. She hates his band t-shirt. She also describes herself falling in love with people constantly who are talking or interacting with her for maybe only a little more than 10 minutes. And when you take the whole picture of this relationship in totality, I just sort of struggle to see what even the point is. Like, what are the stakes? What are the aspirations? What are the hopes here? I mean, it would seem to me that, like, both of these people don't really like each other at all, and respectively they seem more into, you know, their own crafts with what they're doing in music and art than they do each other. But then toward the end of the track, Florence goes back to what she describes as, you know, the one thing she can, like, kind of control, since love is so difficult, and that is music as well as performance. But still, she describes on the song breaking her bones just to get a 4 out of 5 rating. Meanwhile, she says that she's listening to a song by the 1975. I thought, fuck it, I might as well give Music by Men a try. Which is quite the comparison. I mean, I haven't read anything that would confirm Florence Welch thinks the 1975 just make garbage, boring, stupid music. But seeing that line right after the 4 out of 5 bit, and then taking that in context with the section about men making boring music because they can on one of the greats, like, people are gonna read this side by side a certain way, obviously. And I don't know, either way I read this, this line to me just kind of comes off as either lazy or cowardly. Because, like, you're telling me there's not a better name or group you could have put in that line, where you're essentially rhyming 5 with 5. But also, in addition to that, if the intentions behind this line are as what they read, are the 1975 like the most praised band in the world, or undeserving of what accolades they have received so far, or the band who's kind of getting the praise or attention that you should should be instead? Are they the standard bearers for low effort and male mediocrity in the industry? Like, if this is a point you really want to make, there's no shortage of targets out there right now. I don't know why your first choice would be a band that doesn't even have a record in the Billboard 200 at the moment. You could be mentioning Justin Bieber and his bloated ass album, Morgan Wallen, all the AI music out there currently. Maybe even, I don't know, frickin' Jelly Roll. It just feels like the 1975 was picked in part because they're a soft target you're not really going to get a lot of pushback on mentioning. Moving on to You Can Have It All, a really powerful number toward the end of this album, the surrender of it all. It's really an ode to everything Florence feels she has given up and sacrificed in order to make the art and the career she has wanted to make. Something that hits especially hard with the personal context that between this and her last album, she had lost a pregnancy. And then we have the last track, which is more of a kind of chill, very somber, low-key outro where Florence can be heard essentially seeking peace, less choppy waters. The whole track feels more like a meditation or a motif than it does a proper song, and just kind of comes across as like a big musical manifestation. Look, overall, I think this album has a lot of highlights and a lot of great stuff about it. Certainly some of the best production and performances on any Florence and the Machine album so far, and a lot of interesting observations and commentary around her fame and her drive and her creativity and the way it has been received in the world. However, at times Florence's feelings on these topics can come across a little insecure or very bitter, maybe even a little out of touch in a way, because if anything, Florence's lasting power has proven that she is one of the greats, whether a top 100 list says so or not. A lot of those lists are just trying to play it safe and please everybody anyway, which is exactly what this album is not about. And that's really when the music and the writing on this LP is at its best. When Florence is passionately and theatrically really diving into the emotion that fuels what she does, as well as the fears and apprehensions that she needs to overcome in order to continue doing it, which is why I'm feeling a strong 7 on this record. Transition, have you given this album a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe. Please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head is another video that you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, Florence and the Machine, forever.